Made in China. This phrase appears in every nook and cranny of our lives, from the shirt you're wearing, the cup you're drinking from, to even the famous carnival mask in Venice. There's a fact that made in China goods have become as ubiquitous as Coca-Cola in the world we live in. Speaking of numbers, did you know that approximately 30% of the world's goods are manufactured in this East Asian country? Over the past decade, China has risen from a poor and underestimated nation to become the world's second-largest economy. Accompanying this grand status is an industrial powerhouse serving as the top exporter on the planet. This capability has become a colossal lever, lifting an entire nation up. However, in the past 5 years, everything seems to be working against China, both objectively and subjectively. The recent trade war with the US is like a drop that spills the cup, leaving everyone stunned and reflecting on a country that is wealthy, but not without its share of problems. This includes its economy, despite its abundant labor force, which has always been Beijing's strength. So, what's happening in the land of the dragon? Join the World Explainer as we delve into this issue. To achieve its position as the global factory, China has gone through a long journey. Of course, this journey was far from simple. Fortunately for the populous nation, they had a visionary leader like Deng Xiaoping to lead the country out of the consequences of the difficult decades of the 1950s and 1960s. Maximizing the resources at hand and boosting foreign investment were the golden keys to the success of this nation. Since Deng Xiaoping implemented economic reforms in 1978, nearly half a century has passed. The achievements and importance of the economy of the populous nation are undeniable within the global supply chain. However, things have changed significantly now. Here, I'm not talking about the scale of production in China, but the core issue. The cost of production here is no longer as reasonable as it used to be. Going back to 1990, the beginning of the last decade of the 20th century also marked the birth of the iconic gaming console, the Sega Genesis, along with hit titles like Sonic 2 and Castlevania. It was a nostalgic era for those who are now around 30 years old. Throughout its lifespan, Sega Genesis sold approximately 31 million units, with about 1/3 of those units manufactured in China. Moreover, around 85% of Sega's hardware and software came from China and Taiwan. Looking at data from analysts at Haver Analytics, we can see that in 1990, when Sega Genesis was released, the hourly wage for Chinese laborers was not even $1. Fast forward to 2024, Sega Genesis has become a relic, and people reminisce about Sonic 2 as a childhood memory. Today, you have to have a PS5 to be considered cool, and Helldivers 2 sets the trend for gaming in 2024. However, it's not just a change in taste. The world has also undergone rapid changes in many other aspects. Now let's go back to the chart from Haver Analytics. From 1990 to the present day, labor costs have been on the rise almost everywhere. However, it's clear that we see a completely exceptional case, and that's none other than China. It can be said that they have been on a solo journey at the speed of a spaceship. From less than $1 in 1990, labor costs skyrocketed to over $8 by 2022. Today, with the amount paid for 1 hour of labor in China, you could pay for 1.5 hours in Mexico and over 2 hours in Vietnam. This clearly indicates that made in China no longer means cheap. In fact, it's expensive compared to the global average. But why? What happened, and how will it impact the future of global manufacturing? First, let's talk about the root of the issue, which is nothing other than population. This country has truly experienced a post-World War II population explosion. While post-war population growth is natural, it was strongly driven for a period by Beijing. It's somewhat ironic that there was a time when Chinese leadership believed that a massive population was the best way to deal with nuclear war. Here is China's population in the year 2000. Looking at this population pyramid, savvy viewers can immediately notice it's a youthful population model with the bottom bulging out and a sharp peak, right? But there's something very interesting that you have to pay close attention to. Do you see the huge gap between the age groups of 2025 and 2530? That's right, there's a staggering difference of 25 million people. So what's special about the 25-30 age group? This is particularly significant as it includes those who have just graduated, eager to work, even if they're paid poorly and work in terrible conditions. This demographic structure is perfect if you want to provide the world with an endless supply of cheap clothing, shoes, electronics, and household goods to maximize the country's manufacturing capacity. In other words, your reasonably priced iPhone is indirectly the result of Mao Zedong's anti-nuclear war strategy. It sounds unrelated, but it's actually the result of an unexpected chain of cause and effect. In addition, another crucial factor driving this culture of cheap consumption and mass production is migration. Most of the children of the population boom era were born in China's vast rural areas. Therefore, if they wanted to reap the benefits of industrialization, these people had to pack up and head hundreds of miles eastward to coastal cities. From 1990 to 2010, an estimated 10 million people made that migration journey each year. If this pace were to continue, it's unimaginable that one day this country would face a labor shortage. Indeed, China had what's called a golden population ratio. That's when you have plenty of working-age people to produce wealth, a moderate number of children to invest in, and few elderly people to care for. If utilized effectively, as China has done, the golden population would be the key to turning your country into a developed nation. But China's problem is that the golden population era was too short-lived. Everything accelerated rapidly, and now everything is collapsing all at once. Under Mao Zedong, China advocated for the fastest possible population expansion. 30 years later, the children born during the population boom era flooded into the labor market. So, what happened is perhaps the question on everyone's mind, right? The answer lies in Beijing adopting a completely opposite policy right after Mao Zedong's passing. The founding father of the People's Republic of China passed away, and a new leader emerged. That man was Deng Xiaoping. He could be considered the father of modern China, with economic reform policies that changed the face of the nation. However, alongside that, this general secretary and his colleagues made a grave mistake. In 1982, the Chinese government introduced the one-child policy as a fundamental national policy. If you've never heard of this concept, it's simply direct government interventions to control population size. Many countries still use this method to alleviate the economic burden imposed by excessively high population numbers. However, in China, everything was taken to a much harsher degree compared to the rest of the world. Specifically, Beijing implemented the one-child policy, resulting in a sudden and drastic decrease in the number of children born. As a result, the labor market suddenly contracted rapidly, just like their family planning policies. Do you remember the massive workforce aged 25 to 30 in the 2000s? Now it's 2024. The average age of this group is now 55, entering the autumn of their lives. In the blink of an eye, from a country with a good fertility rate, Beijing saw deaths surpassing births for the first time in 2022. It's a ringing alarm bell that's deafening. If this trend continues, this is the last time we witness a China brimming with youthful energy. Because in just about 50-60 years, the massive population will plummet by half. The title of being the most populous nation will then become a relic of a bygone era of golden development. China is approaching what's called the Lewis turning point. At that turning point, surplus begins to diminish as food prices rise and industrial wages must increase to attract labor into industry. The result? Profits decrease, investment decreases, affecting growth. As the labor force gradually disappears, how are businesses coping? If you're a business owner and China is your main market, you have to stay. But if not, then you'll have to ask yourself, do I need skilled labor? If the answer is no, then it's time to pull out. Because there's no reason to pay more for labor if you can shift to, say, India, which is cheaper and still close to China, with less relocation costs. In reality, this story has been, is, and will continue to unfold in China. Nike, the sports brand, now only produces 21% of its shoes in China. Vietnam has surpassed its neighbor to become Nike's largest shoe manufacturer. Currently, 51% of Nike's sports shoes are produced in Vietnam. So, the story of Made in China is not a new issue, but has been shaping up for some time. Does this mean China will quickly decline? The answer is certainly not, and it's even the opposite because of what Beijing is doing now. However, that story I'll save for another day with a more specific topic. Now it's time for us to chat in the comments section. For now, goodbye and see you next time.